All right, recording resumed at 1:10 p.m. All right, Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the inspection with Councillor McCarthy and the Director, and the report is mostly in line with what we came up with. But I had misgivings then, and I still have them, and I'd like to move an amendment, if I may. My amendment is in 3 parts. Number 1, that survey and design be conducted to determine what works are required to best overcome the drainage problems on the north side of Dart Street, and including whether any internal works would be necessary within those properties to make it effective. Number 2, that letters be sent to the property owners asking if they want council to proceed with the project, given the requirement for them to contribute to the cost, plus the possible extra cost of any internal works. Number 3, that a further...
Sorry, can I just get you to repeat the last piece of that last?
What are you up to?
Contribute plus the cost of in.
Plus the possible extra cost of any internal works. And number 3, that a further report be provided for council to consider funding the project during 2022-23.
Councillor Tucker, I'm not going to allow that amendment because it fundamentally contravenes the recommendations. So it is not an amendment.
Can you move it as a foreshadow?
You can foreshadow it. Yes.
Just through the process, Mike, and for council's consideration, you already have an approved resolution to undertake these works. What this amendment would do is change what you've already resolved to do.
I'm doing this step by step, and the first step is to not allow that amendment. I'm allowing it as a foreshadowed amendment, and we continue discussion. Councillor Tremblay.
Through the chair, I went and had a look at Dart Street because I don't really understand. Having reviewed this report, and I saw that we decided to do one thing, which was just the stormwater, getting rid of it. And then after the meeting and inspection, we've then gone to a slightly bigger, more upgraded Rolls-Royce drainage. And then I was concerned about the contributions from the residents. And now potentially we're going to do another report and do something else. And we're just adding more and more costs that will be passed back to our ratepayers. So I'm not sure. I have asked Chris, and he said the second option probably would be. He agrees that it's a good option, but it has gone up in price, and we're still nowhere and wanting to do more. Whereas this is floodwater. We're trying to help people and solve an issue, but we seem to be wanting to. Is anywhere else in Oberon got this drainage? The Rolls Royce of drainage occurring, or is it just this one particular area?
Through me to the Director of Technical Services.
Yep, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, certainly, look, there are a number of areas, I suppose, in Oberon that have been identified as part of the curb and gutter program. This particular matter was raised by a resident with concern about getting water or sheep water inundation under their house and through their property. On that basis was then the view of basically what we've done in other locations in terms of providing curb and gutter in the first instance. And again, looking at each particular project on their merit is always something that you need to do. And in this case, the existing footpath is there already. It would seem very uneconomical, I suppose, to remove that footpath and replace it with no foresight back then in terms of lifting it for drainage. However, that being the case, I have no issue with Councillor Tucker and Councillor McCarthy's concerns raised there with the V drain, but I think to go to probably further concern with more survey, I don't probably foresee that that's warranted, whilst we are taking into account putting those additional drainage sumps in for those particular allotments to drain to is more than adequate, I would believe. And then if a dwelling was to be constructed on particularly the middle block, it would have to be put at an elevation that would be able to contribute or discharge to appropriate drainage mechanisms, which are we're actually putting in place in this instance. Thank you.
Councillor McKeppy?
Well, I think Councillor Tucker might be.
Well, he's had us go already, so I'm giving you a chance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of concerns that that the stormwater is actually a sole cause of the issue there. We probably, I agree with the director that we need to probably do a survey to be 100% sure, but the water could well be coming from the school playground or from seepage groundwater. The southern side of Earl Street, southern side of Dart Street, from Earl Street down to the reserve, those landholders and blocks there don't seem to have any issue with water. So I think that the curb and gutter and that on that side is probably an overkill cost that we don't have to impose on them. We should probably write to them and ask them if they would be willing to contribute their 50%, but whether indeed they want curb and gutter on that side, but probably not necessary to fix the problem for the blocks on the other side. There's a drain on the eastern end of the school block in Earl Street that could probably do with a good clean out and refurbish, or it's just an open drain, but it's probably not functioning to its capacity. So it could be causing a problem as well. So I think there's a few questions on this, and we need to probably take the director's warning and or comment that we do a little bit more investigation with the survey and determine where the water may be coming from and the best way of and most economical way of getting the correct resolution. I think we've probably, as Councillor Trimbar said, we've gone for a Rolls-Royce solution here that might be only running on a few cylinders. So I think we've gone too far.
Sorry, you got anything to add, Councillor Grant? My view at the moment is that we have gone from a resolution to a second resolution to a foreshadowed amendment, and that is what is known in any other organisation as scope creep in significant amount. We have a drainage plan, we have a curbing and guttering plan, we have priorities, and it has not been demonstrated to me, at least, that this is worthy of jumping over the top of those priorities. If we can prove that, that's fine. If it's something that is clearly we missed in the original planning process, we rectify that. But at the moment, we're spending an extra $45,000 and possibly a lot more should the foreshadowed motion ever get up. And I think that is not good decision making. And we need to make sure that whatever decision we make is consistent with our priorities for the drainage of the whole of Oberon. And if it's important, if we upgrade this particular area, that's fine, but that case needs to be made. Councillor Hayden.
I don't see a problem with the original motion here. I would like to question the curb and guttering on the southern side of Dart Street, because a lot of the residents currently drive up into their lawn. So I do actually know they don't want curb and guttering, so we're probably best saving our money for that side of the street and just doing the guttering on the other side, where when I've been down there, I have actually seen the drainage back up that's near the school. So when we've had exceptional amount of rain in a short period of time over a couple of days, it has actually caused significant issues, but that won't be a continuing issue all the time.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Trembath that it's a significant amount of money, and that's my point in moving the foreshadowed motion, is that if we're going to spend that sort of money, we need to be certain that it's going to fix the problem that we're claiming it's going to fix. I've been and had a look at that area on many occasions during significant rain, and I'm simply not convinced that the design as currently put to us is going to make a substantial difference. In rainfall events, I have never seen sheet water flowing into those properties. My best guess of what's causing the problem is different from overland flow, and I think it's more to do with subsoil drainage and the inability of those properties to drain out onto the road. And if my best estimate is correct, then spending this amount of money is not going to fix that problem. And that's why I'm suggesting not further project creep, but going through a proper survey and design process to make sure that what we do spend will actually achieve what we claim it's going to achieve. Thank you.
Yep.
Service Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, look, certainly one or two things there, and I don't disagree that subsoil drainage being the responsibility of any property owner is something that you would do when you're in a low-lying area, obviously to drain your property. Of course, what you've got to recognise, and I must disagree with Councillor Tucker in terms of what I have witnessed in terms of sheet flow going across into that particular first property, which then inadvertently affects other lower lying property below it, has certainly happened. Whilst this plan doesn't address, and I've got to draw a conclusion, I suppose, where I start and where I stop in the first instance with curb and gutter, future extensions of curb and gutter along toward the northern side between Dart Street and Tasman Street are something that council needs to continue into the future as part of probably that rolling works program. And I think also notably, someone mentioned their deepening of the existing table drain on the bottom end of the school would certainly be something that would accommodate, I believe, in the first instance, whilst curb and gutter is not as part of this stage to carry water and preclude it from basically jumping Earl Street and down Hollis Lane and then back through the back end of these properties. So it's not dismissive of that, but working within a budgetary means of the first stage of trying to keep water in a road corridor and not discounting the fact that yes, there is groundwater issues with these low-lying areas. But I mean, how far does council go in terms of accommodating and intruding into these properties where it's really the responsibility then and thereafter of the owner to put in any other devices or mechanisms to drain suitable water from their properties? Thank you.
Right reply, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. The other day I was very lucky. I run into one of the residents down there that is going to build on the bottom end of Dart Street. And I was able to ask him why the 450 mil pipe was there. there's a 600 mil pipe that's on council reserve. On the footpath, it's a 450. Apparently, they put that in at their own cost, and it runs into the creek to drain, keep the water out of their property. So that's one thing. Another one was, I spoke to him and I said, why is there so much water coming out of the vacant block on the other side of the road? And if you have a look at the map that was submitted in November, he said there used to be a large amount of trees there that formed a barrier and that retained the water on the block. That's since been removed. And I support this amended plan in respect that it gives us a finish of curb and guttering in the area. It also gives the road pavement a tidy up, that we get the road tarred from gutter, curb and gutter to curb and gutter, which is a bit what's saying at the moment. How are you going at the moment? I know there's not a lot of amount of people down there, but this is the problem where this is the end of this road with the water. This is the flow, and that's what we've got to take into consideration. Also, I think the engineer would deal with this in his own right, but we need to, if this gets up and we're going to do the curb and gutter in the bottom lower end of Dar Street on the southern side, we need to talk to the owner that's going to build there soon, make sure we don't put curb and gutter that's going to prohibit his development. In other words, we might need a driveway splay or something like that. But I'm supportive of the report. I know we've mucked the director around in trying to get it there, but I think it was all good intentions with trying to balance that gutter, the footpath, and balance the gutter. But you didn't want a footpath up here and a gutter down there, and the water just still running down the footpath. So I'm supporters of the motion. Thank you.
All right, councillors, I'll put the motion. And that'll be the recommendation as stated. All in favour? Against? Councillors against is McKechnie and Tucker, and all other present councillors in favour. The motion has been passed. Item 0502, proposed plant replacement program. Recommendation is that council endorse the draft 2022-23 plant replacement program as presented. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Hayden, Councillor McCarthy.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Don't keep the plant up to scratch. Visual new thing, you fall far behind. The only thing that concerns me, and it's my own fault, that I didn't ask for a report on the D7 dozer that we own. In respect that, but I support all what's been presented to us. Also, would like the information on what's going to happen with, aren't we getting the dog trailer replaced after an accident?
Through the chair, there is a dog trailer that has been written off, which needs to be replaced. This is a separate to that. We've got 3.
So the insurance doesn't cover the replacement?
Doesn't cover its full replacement. Obviously, any asset, unless you cover it for its like for replacement value, you only get its written down value.
Okay, so to replace that, then we'll need more money.
Through the chair, yes, there is certainly. That's right. There is a small. There's going to be a gap. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we have 3 or 4 major trucks, which the truck and dog combination, which you see the Western Star 2010. Yeah, we need to be able to control this, and when we're required to do work, we need this work stuff ability. With the backhoe and the tractor, 7,000 hours is getting up to transmission concerns, and it works. So I support the recommendation. The only thing is, like I say, I would like to see a report on the bulldozer. We don't actually use it enough, and in recent construction on the Lowe's-Mount Road, we actually had a contractor come in with a very similar dozer. When we won gravel out of the pit, I think at Wayland's at Edith, we actually employed a contractor because I don't know why ours wasn't suitable, but anyway, it wasn't doing the job. But one thing that's come about, I don't think we've enough staff to operate a lot of these machines. Because as you see at the moment, we've got excavator, backhoe, and a bulldozer all sitting at the tip. But I don't think we've got any operators anymore.
That's my feeling, but we've got to keep up to date with this plant replacement.
Yes,
Do you want to comment?
Oh, you-
Technical Services Director?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, certainly there is a resourcing issue with going through the recruitment process of people, staff that have left the organisation or shuffled into different positions. Undoubtedly has compromised the use of some of those plant items. The D7 dozer that we currently have wasn't utilised at the Waylands pit simply because wasn't a large enough machinery to rip the floor. We did actually engage a different device altogether from a dozer in that particular instance, but we have used it over in the Isabella pit, or the known as the, I think, the Five Ways pit. So it still has its capabilities and has its capabilities on jobs. It is a plant item that doesn't have a specific assigned person per se, be it very useful in a lot of projects that we have. It hasn't had a significant amount of use in recent time. I must concede that giving that and having to use external resources on a lot of these projects, including contractors, to certainly align with our staff to bring these particular projects to fruition. So, yeah, it's an item of a plant that certainly has its fits and starts in usage. So, just to give you a bit of an idea.
Councillor Hayden?
yes, I second the recommendation, and it's most important that we keep on top of our working assets to keep our road assets in good repair.
Councillor Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I absolutely support maintaining a modern and up-to-date plant fleet, but I don't think there's enough details being provided for us to properly analyse and make an informed decision about which are the appropriate items to replace in the coming years. So again, I have an amendment I'd like to put, if I may, please, which is that further details of the proposed plant replacement program be provided to the May ordinary meeting, including usage over the last 12 months, current condition, and expected remaining life of all major plant items, and the tentative replacement program for each year up to 2030-31.
So just the last bit.
And
Tentative.
and the tentative replacement program for each year up to 2030-31.
Bring that up, Sharon. Is that accurate? Councillor Tucker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kegney? You want to speak any further to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I assume this report has been included today following an email I sent back in January requesting a report on plant replacement prior to budget deliberations. So the information that I have requested to be provided next month is simply exactly the same as what I had requested back in January. There's a lot of information, detailed information that I think we need in order to properly determine which are the optimum items for replacement. And it is simply not evident from either the report or the spreadsheet. There are things on the report and spreadsheet that I simply can't make sense of. And I also think we need to look further into the future so that we can see that we've got a steady replacement of plant, so that all major plant items, we can see what year they will be scheduled for replacement. For example, on the spreadsheet, if you look at plant 7, the dozer, it says it was purchased in 2014, listed for trade in 2024.
What line number is that?
Plant item number 7, Cat D7 and dozer. And it shows a figure of $500,000 in 2021. But if it was replaced in that year, then why is that not shown in the first year column? Or if it wasn't replaced in that year, then it's not indicated when it would be replaced. Similarly with plant 8, the excavator purchased 2012, listed for trade in 2022, now listed in the 23-24 column. Plant 11, backhoe, purchased 2013, listed for 2023, but not shown on this spreadsheet in either 2023-24 or 24-25. And I don't think replacements should simply be based on age. There are going to be cases where things don't last as long as we might expect initially, and they need to be brought forward, or vice versa, and they can be pushed back. As far as we are able to tell from what's been presented, it appears to be simply based on age and nothing else. And that's why I'm asking for the extra information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, certainly valid questions there, Councillor Tucker, with relation to some of those plan items that you mentioned, in particular the dozer. That was certainly an envisaged area where we were looking at maybe replacing the dozer, but again, it hasn't really worked to what we had projected at that time. So it's sitting status quo at the minute. There is more to this particular plant program. This is a shortened version just for predominantly looking at this particular financial year. Whilst we, again, you'll notice the tally right down the bottom does include other items we've had to obviously cut back and live within budgetary needs, and really addressing heavier plant this year as opposed to last year, where we looked at a lot of commercial utility replacement and other particular items. So again, the items contained within the additional piece of information that I did provide give you a bit more insight. It's not just based on age. Again, age is one factor. Usage is very important in terms of understanding how many hours or kilometres are on particular plant items. And again, where these particular plant items are used across the LGA, in terms of off-road, on-road terrain, does play a part in terms of that determination with the plant foreman in identifying those items of plant that are coming up with manufacturers' recommendations for major service and/or fair wear and tear, and what costs are being borne by a council continually to keep all those particular items on the road. A very critical forms criticality of this particular process. So there is a projected plant replacement program out to year 30 or 2030. However, that can change and will change continuously. And I think that really focusing on within a 5-year window is probably the most important aspect I would draw to council's attention.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully agree with maintaining our equipment and up to date and in optimal working order, but I do have a couple of parts to the report that I'm having trouble understanding. I'm not sure what the actual percentage usage would be or efficiency percentage would be acceptable for our plant. But I notice on the example that's been provided by the director on the Western Star truck that it actually is 12 years old and it has 14,000 hours, and which equates to 1,100 hours annually. Well, that's not quite right. 1,100 is 1,300 hours, 13.200 hours. If you take a working week of 40 hours and a working year of conservatively 40 weeks, allowing for leave, weather, maintenance on the vehicle, service, that gives us an availability of 19,200 working hours, which means that we're only using it 65 to 68% of its availability. So that's just an example. I'd like to see some of those percentages or some of those usage rates on some of this other equipment as well, because maybe we're not using them that much. We don't need to replace them, or we may not need them at all. It might be more economical to hire. The second point that I'd like to make on the report is its total estimated replacement costs for 22-23 in the report is 670,000. In the spreadsheet that's attached to the report, now I might be reading this incorrectly, but I assume that the yellow column recommended 22-23 refers to the plant that will recommend to replace in 22-23. It doesn't match the table in the report, and the total of it at the bottom is 790,000, which is a variance of 120,000, which is close to 20% variance, which is unexplained in the report. Now, we come to the plant replacement that was some of the items we were still waiting on from 21-22. Again, I don't know why we'd be waiting on the guidepost, but I assume that's a typo. But it says we're waiting on the order for some time, the orders for some time. Well, I spoke to some haulage contractors in the last few days, and they're saying they have orders in for Kenworth and Western Star prime movers, and the lead time is up to 2 years for them. But that's just for information. So I think we should know what the lead times are being quoted on this equipment that we've already got ordered. If we've got to wait another 12 months, we may be, which we could have to. We have no control over that, but maybe we've got to look at the process we use to determine the replacement, because we're going to have to use these old ones till they're replaced or hire other ones. So all this information and these hypotheticals are reasons why I don't think there's enough information there to authorise or endorse spending whichever amount it is, 670 or 790. I can't support that.
Yeah, through the chair. Certainly, with that, I'll go back to the plant replacement program with the yellow column. As I did mention there previously when I was talking to this particular sheet, was the bottom section, and you'll see a solid line midway through under line 59, Sloane Dog Trail. Essentially, anything above that is where I arrive at the $670,000. From the budgetary process, this is really for council's consideration now and deliberation as part of the operational plan, is that under that line is, and you're right, the report doesn't really talk to anything under that line and why that 790 in difference, that is just a 20% margin. There has been no forward discussion with, let's say, Kenworth or Western Star and that in terms of where they're at with trucks and that, because there's really no reason to do that until council goes through a process of saying, well, yep, we accept this will be the plant list for the year. However, happy to do that. It's concerning that you do raise a 2-year lead time, and then leading into what we never anticipated would be an excessive lead time to even replace some of those light vehicles in the 21-22 plant replacement program as outlined in the report. And I do apologise for the error in that particular report guidepost. Should be like an air, what it is an air compressor trailer with a guidepost rammer. So guys can punch the guidepost through the bitumen. So do apologise for that, but that's exactly what that is. Again, we are working with the suppliers and getting information as timely as we can. The latest advice is that we may receive some of these vehicles prior to 30th of June, but this is the worst case scenario. They are saying that probably more likely now that we will be receiving these pre-ordered items not until into the new financial year. So again, it's a hard one to put the exact finger on and give you timing, but particularly if we were going down the path of the Western Star vehicle, it could be by your reports, Councillor McKechnie, that 2 years could be the lead time. I'm not quite sure. I'm hoping that wouldn't be the case, but some manufacturers do hold certain vehicles over for government. I'm not quite sure whether that's the case with Western Star, for example.
Yeah, I don't have any writing, it was just in conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you done for the moment?
Thank you.
I second
Councillor
it, so can I suggest an amendment to the recommendation? That states the word major.
Yeah. Sorry, at the moment, we've got an
Oh, we're
amendment.
on the next
We're
one.
on
yeah.
amendment,
Yeah.
proposed by Councillor Tucker, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. So you can have a comment on the,
Yeah.
the amendment.
Well,
You can foreshadow amendment, so if you like.
what
which
I
will then
wanted
be
to
dealt
do
with
was to
after.
clear up a couple for
Yeah.
Councillor McKechnie's thought processes there, that the original recommendation maybe perhaps should have said major plant replacement, because the other plant in the spreadsheet are more minor and fleet vehicles. These are our major plant that we require to use on our roads regularly, and they need to be upgraded so that they're not running behind, and especially that covers workplace health and safety standards as well, that change every 5 years with vehicles. So that's just something I wanted to.
Thank you, Councillor Hatch. Anyone else?
Yeah,
Councillor McCarthy?
I understand where, I understand where they're coming from. I honestly think myself, the council needs to sit down and have a workshop with this. And the workshop shouldn't hold this replacement plan. My feeling is that things like a dozer now, you can hire one if you've got a program throughout the year where you want to win gravel, you hire one for 3 months, and that's it. Bad luck if you have another job come up. Other things that here is why I think we should have this workshop is we need another mower. John Deere tractor mower. And why I say that is I was horrified and I brought it to the engineers thing. We had our good mower out along Lowe's Mount Road, trying to mow the grass along the edge of the road there at Lowe's Mount. That's that mower that packs up and we try and do a good job on the rec ground. That machine is not for that job, but the staff are trying to do the best with what they got. So at the moment, I don't support this thing. I think we should get on with the replacement program, and later on we have a workshop to what councillors feel they need.
So you don't support the amendment?
No.
Anyone else?
Through the chair, I would agree with Councillor McCarthy that I agree with the original motion and we need to move forward on it. And I don't agree with the amendment.
Anyone else? Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's important to get on with this replacement program. You don't want everything stalled, particularly if there's a long lead time in actually getting them. We haven't got some last year's things, so you need to go ahead and keep progressing, I think.
Anyone else? Councillor Tucker, right of reply?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I point out that there's no great urgency to get started on this because we're talking about the replacement program for the next financial year, which is 2 months away. And I just wanted to point out a couple of recommendations in the Morrison Lowe report, which have been agreed by council under plant and equipment. Number 1 says council review plant and fleet requirements with a view to rationalising.
Councillor Tucker, the Morrison Lowe report is confidential and you must stop now.
Okay, I apologise for that. Well, I would encourage councillors to read items 1, 4 and 5 under plant and equipment, because I don't think that's being done at the moment. And that's the information that I am requesting to be provided for the May ordinary meeting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. Smell, can you bring up the amendment on the screen, please? All right, councillors. I will now put the amendment. That is, that further details of the proposed plant replacement program be provided to the May ordinary meeting, including usage over the last 12 months, current condition and expected remaining life of all major plant items and the tentative replacement program for each year up till 2030-31. All of those in favour? Councillor Tucker, Councillor McKechnie. Against? Councillor Trembath, McCarthy, Graham, Hayden and Kelly. The amendment is lost. I now put the original recommendation that the council endorse the draft 2022-23 plant replacement program as presented. All those in favour?
Just through procedural,
Sorry, excuse me.
sorry, just for a procedural matter. There was a potentially foreshadowed motion to include major within that original recommendation. If councillors want to go down that path.
If Councillor McCarthy and Councillor Hayden are happy to put the word major into that, and both of them are agreeable to that, we'll move the motion on that basis.
Can I just have an understanding then? If you're going to have major, that gives you the 6 items on page 18 and precludes the items on 19. Is that right?
You probably would.
So through the chair, 21-22 replacement's already been dealt with. It's already been put in place. It was for information about what we are still awaiting. The report outlines that the plant replacement program for heavy plate includes those dot points. So it would be the inclusion of those dot points in the financial consideration for the 22-23 operational plan. Council will then get another opportunity when that goes on exhibition to make their formal decisions on that. You are giving council at this point in time the ability to in fact progress to including these plan items in an draft operational plan.
So as it currently exists, that recommendation will include all the line items on that spreadsheet from line item 1 down to 59. Is that correct? And that's all the major and minor plant items.
Yeah.
So in that case, I'm not sure you don't need major. It's all of those items.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move the amendment I'll move the motion as it stands. All those in favour? Against? Against was Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Tucker. Motion's passed. Item 0503. Before I read out the recommendation, I'll put this in a little bit of context. This is not a a recommendation that is about approving this special rate variation. It's about getting council approval to put in an application. And that application, and then that will go on public exhibition and the decision will be made at a later date. And during the discussion, I think it's become clear what the issues are. So the recommendation before us is that in two parts. First part is that council make an application to the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, IPART, under section 508(2) of the Local Government Act 1993 for a permanent additional special variation of 2.1%, including a population factor for the 2022-23 operational plan. Number two, in making this application for an additional special variation, council has undertaken an assessment against the current long-term financial plan, which assumed a 2.1% rate peg for 2022-23, and noted A, the additional income that council will receive if approved compared to the rate peg of 0.7% as determined by IPART in December 2021, total $68,000. B, the additional income is required to maintain council's current level of services and operations to the Oberon LGA. And C, the council has considered the impact on ratepayers and the community in 2022-23 operational plan and future years that the impact is reasonable. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Hayden. Councillor Tremblay. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, been going through this. This is something very important that we need to look at and have done. And our CSP has it all planned out over 2.1%, not 0.7%. And this recommendation makes a lot of sense for now and the ongoing upkeep of our community.
Councillor Tremblay.
Through the chair, I totally support the recommendation and agree with Councillor Hayden's thoughts on it, that we do need to do it because everything has been based on a different number and we can't be seen to be penalising our community for the services that they're entitled to through rates.
Anyone else? Councillor McKechnie.
Yeah, could I get clarification? Well, I don't fully understand what the difference is between applying for a temporary variation and a permanent. I think I do, but I don't want to mouth off if I'm wrong.
I'll let the general manager explain this because it's subtle.
Yeah, I know. I think I know what it is. but
Very good
I want
question,
it clear
councillor.
before I continue.
The difference between a permanent and a temporary resolution, in simple terms as I possibly can, because there are some other intrinsic issues associated with it, but in its general term, is that a permanent variation will mean that when you move into 23-24, your rate peg will start at the income that you've received under the 2.1 variation, whereas a temporary may mean you have to go back to your received income from 21-22 to start your calculation again. Is that what you thought?
Yes, it is, and it's as I feared, but it's a compound increase, essentially, because it's not just for a one-off for 1 year. If you make it permanent, it's compounded then from then on.
Yep.
Because it lifts the base that the
base
rate peg is
correct.
put on.
Yep.
So this increase we're asking to approve is a bit more significant than a minor percentage increase, I think. I doubt very much that I can support that, considering the amount of money we've wasted recently. So people need to be aware that this is not just a one-off increase for 1 year. I think there's a lot of people that don't understand that. That's why I wanted to be clear, because I that's the way I thought it was, and the way I've explained it to people, but there are a lot of people that think that it's only going to be effective for this year, but in fact, it's a permanent increase.
For the 22-23 financial year. And then
Yeah,
a
right.
rate peg will determine what it will be
Oh,
moving forward after those years.
Yeah, but the next rate peg will be on the base that's inclusive of the 2.1, not back to the 0.7 increase.
That's what's proposed, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I just
I'm
think
trying-
that people need to be clear on that.
And I want to be very clear on it as well. But people also need to be very clear on wages rising by 3.5%.
Yeah, I know.
Materials
the
rising
budget on-
by 20. All those things that we need to be cognizant of when we run a council, that we are trying to
Yeah.
deliver those things.
Excuse me, the general manager, but you know, I think the elected members should be the ones influenced the vote.
Well, through the chair, I'm not trying to influence the vote. I'm just being
Commentary sound otherwise.
wasn't my intention.
You have anything else?
No, thank you.
Councillor Tucker?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not opposing the recommendation, but I do have several questions. The first one is very similar. Obviously, I understand the difference between temporary and permanent, but I was really struggling to understand how they could apply to this situation. And the only theory I could come up with was pretty much the same as what the general manager just explained. But further to that, I see the recommendation is for a permanent increase. So perhaps I've misunderstood something last week when I sent an email asking the same question to the Director of Corporate Services. My understanding from the reply was that we were only looking at a temporary increase. Have I misunderstood something in your reply?
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor Tucker. Yeah, at the time when we were responding to your email, we were in deliberations as to how this, I guess, this recommendation would work through into our long-term financial plans, and upon further clarification, that's essentially where we were looking at the difference between the permanent and the temporary, as was just discussed, that a temporary would be looking at a 2.1, but then be at the Liberty of Light part in the following year, returning to a 0.7 base based on the different determinations. But as per the recommendation, we are looking at permanent, which would lock in that base.
So I didn't misunderstand, it's just things have changed
That's
since
correct.
then. Okay, thank you. And I don't understand a couple of the points in the table on page 22. Could you explain what add val and base mean?
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor Tucker, the ad val is the ordinary component of the rate space. And the ad val is based on your land values and your determination as to how you derive that that element of the rate base. And then you've also got your base as well. And those two tables being provided across the 0.7 and 2.1.
Well, rather than take everyone's time now, perhaps I can sit down with you some other time.
Sure.
So I'm simply not following what those terms mean. And also just after an explanation of the comment in the introduction about the effect of removing the land development costs, I don't understand why the difference between those figures doesn't equal the $68,000. The last line of the summary.
Oh, yes. Okay. So,
May I, Mr. Mayor?
yeah, through the Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. The rationale behind the difference of the 68 and the 66 shown is when our town improvement levy gets raised, we intend to spend it in that year on town improvements. That's why the the $7,000 there is then offset against an expense to then be expended, hence bring it back to the $61,000.
That's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I can't speak to.
Oh, it's the ones who have no chance. Councillor McCarthy.
Given the figures that we got before us, is fair enough, but what's our rate creep anticipated to be? In other words, we've got the subdivision, Bracken Glen Lane, Stringfield Street. Surely goodness, does that take into consideration? What sort of rate creep are we anticipating?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's what they call it, rate creep, when you have subdivisions and they come online and they
So,
pay rates.
Just to sort of help clarify that, you mean, what are the additional rates that we anticipate from new subdivisions over the next year, or
Base
5
rates.
years?
Well, yeah,
They're additional base rates.
additional rates, all that. Because
Yeah.
in lots of cases, like say, if you take Springfield Street, there's a rate income there when he gets that section approved or whatever, but we have no more cost. And the cost of that subdivided land, the rate that we would have got for that is a big parcel is now gone, and now there's a certain amount of rate creep that comes in. Is it 1% or do we should know?
Question. This is long-term financial plan. which I said it there.
That's correct. So as part of the preparation of including proposal expected rate income, we assume that through our long-term financial plan. Do we allow for that in an assumption on? I would suspect that there would be some clarification on that moving forward, but I can't give you a percentage, councillor.
But what I'm getting at, it could influence these figures before us.
Through the chair, these figures are based on current day where we're at now.
I'd like to try and put this a little bit in context. When 0.07% came out as the basic rate peg, the only variation from that was for population increase. And population increase was deemed by a series of figures produced within the New South Wales Planning Department, which have been demonstrably wrong for years. They don't agree with the census. They don't agree with the number of ratepayers that come into being in new developments to a large degree. And consequently, out of 123 local government areas, 123 local government areas complained bitterly to the minister about how IPART arrived at that figure. The minister stated in public that she had no idea how they arrived at that figure and promised back in late February that she would provide relief for this coming financial year, which was the process she's put in place. And she has also put in place a process to make IPART more accountable for what their figures are. 2.1% is currently significantly less than our projected salary and wage increases as dictated by the award for local government, which is 2.5%, and is significantly less than the current CPI and inflation rate for Australia and New South Wales, for that matter, of 3.5%. So that is the context that this move by the minister to allow councils that have already put on exhibition their long-term financial plan to apply for a special rates variation for this financial year. And we put our last long-term financial plan on exhibition with 2.1% as the rate for 22-23. Now, this resolution here is not approving that increase. What it is doing is allowing us to make an application, put the issue on public exhibition, getting feedback from people, and then making a determination. So that is the context. Now, are there any other, anyone else wishes to speak as well? Councillor Hayden?
I just wanted to make sure that everyone was well aware that land prices in Oberon have actually doubled. Wages have risen, population has grown, and for council to be able to afford to maintain everything within the area, we need to seriously put this application in, because we cannot upkeep everything currently at 0.7%. It must go up.
I'm going to put the motion as it stands. All in favour? Against? Councillor McKechnie has voted against. All other councillors in favour. The motion is passed. Thank you, councillors. Item 0504, Capital Works Program, progress update for 21-22. The report item 0504 be received as information. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Hayden, seconder. Councillor Graham. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, it's a thorough report. I was having a look in here. Undertake the rectification works and everything, funding work from urban development. Oh no, I'm sorry. Sorry, let's figure that out. The Mozart Road. When will that be completed there? I noticed that's listed for this month or next month.
Technical Service Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Certainly has commenced. There's some hot coals that have been put in. There was some previous work on the first 1 kilometre, and it's envisaged that yes, it could go in the next month now. Just the resourcing with concurrently doing Edith Road and Mozart town has played a little bit of difficulty. Also noting the colder weather is really the issue. So we're pushing ahead with that now as we speak. Like I say, by May.
Yeah. And I'm also pleased to see about the water reticulation through the report, and that kicks off tomorrow, I think, today. Right. I'm happy to move that.
Councillor Graham.
Mayor, yes, I'm happy to support, to accept the report. Interesting to see how much of the works have been interrupted by COVID and the weather, which is a bit of a shame. But you know, they're still there, and they will happen, I'm sure.
Councillor Tucker.
Mr. Mayor. Again, all the information that I had requested in this report has not been provided. So again, I would like to move an amendment.
Certainly.
So my amendment would be that the current recommendation would become number 1, and I would add a point 2, which would be that a further report be provided given my recording the meeting, setting out the details of each roads capital works project for 2021-22, including its total budget, funding sources, and current expenditure.
councillor, is that what you propose?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a second? Councillor McKechnie? Councillor Tucker, you wish to speak further?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said, again, I'm assuming this report came from a request that I sent to the General Manager back in January. And the critical thing that I'm trying to get a better understanding of is the various sources of funding available to council for its works program, both in terms of grants from state or federal or anywhere else, as well as council's own resources such as reserves or the FAG grant or whatever it may be. And it would really help me to understand what funds are available from each of those sources, where they're currently going. And I think that would help me and all councillors to make decisions about what amount of funding to put towards capital works in future years and which sources of funding to put towards which projects. And so that the critical thing in that amendment is in particular the funding sources going to each project.
Councillor McKechnie?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any. Councillors have been indicating they'd like to have this information for several years now, so I support the amendment, yes.
General Manager, would you like to comment on where that information is available?
So through the chair each month, we provide a grants update that shows where a majority of the grant funds have been derived from. They also form part of council's matrix as to where their priorities are, and the works that we do, certainly in the capital works program, have a fair relationship between the recommendations and resolutions of council and the grant application we apply for.
Any other councillors?
Yes,
Councillor
just,
McCarthy?
I think what Councillor Tucker might be trying to get at, if you can go to page 34, I know we haven't dealt with that yet, but say Sill Street Road, underneath it might be a box to say road to recovery or general rates or something like that. Maybe that's what they're aiming for, is it? I'm not sure. Say Wilson Drive might be just rate maintenance or something like that. I don't know. Anyway.
Look, I must admit, Councillor Tucker, I think I know where you're going. I think you've been, you need to be more specific about, I think total budget is perfectly reasonable. The funding sources vary. Current expenditure, if you're asking for a capital works program, that's once a year is giving it the current expenditure. So I'm not quite sure what the utility of this particular amendment might be, but I'm not averse to having some reporting coming in on these issues. So it's just not quite as specific as it perhaps should be.
Through the chair, could we get some indication on what projects council would like to see additional information on? Is it on every capital works project that we undertake? Because I think that we provide information to councillors in that reasonably well. Our matrix that have been endorsed by council are the projects in which we try and get delivery on. We've previously outlined the shortfalls and the need to attract funding on certain roads, especially those roads that get substantial logging activity upon them, and we've actively sourced funding in that, and we've been quite successful in getting funding in those areas that have been reported back to council. If I could get some understanding on where or what the council wants to see, then we consider putting that sort of information to council. That's probably my commentary at this point in time.
Any other comments? Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think my interpretation of what councillor Tucker's trying to say is he wants to see it all in one page, if you like. So he can list the projects, list the funding and the outlay. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, that's part of what I'm trying to say, because I haven't been, sorry, is this my right of reply?
No, I mean, that's fine. Councillor Graham has made a point and you're
Yeah.
clarifying that. I'm happy with that.
Okay, it is part of what I'm after, because I have read what's been provided in the monthly reports, and I haven't been able to totally get a handle on what funding is going to each project, particularly when it comes from council's own resources, such as reserves or rates income or whatever it might be. So yes, to have it all in one document would certainly help. And there are some projects which have multiple sources of funding, and that's not always clear.
I just think that the information is there, but we do have to delve into it to find it. That's all.
General Manager, you have some comments on what might be the best solution to achieve that. So I don't think report back to council from council every few months is the way to do it.
Through the chair, I don't think that requires a report to council. I think that we could provide that information to councillors in some form that may assist them in gauging where the contribution from each of the capital works programs is. We can do a table, we can do that form in which provides councillors with up-to-date information should they wish. Because my question is, does it require a report back to council?
I'm not sure how that's going to influence our decisions really about what needs to be done in our LPA. The funding's there, it's coming from various sources sometimes, but really we should be focusing on what work is actually being done that needs to be done. And having the confidence in the team that they know how to spend that money and spend it well, and they do report to us on a very regular basis.
Right, reply now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, well, in my personal case, I would find it useful to help my decisions for future in determining the programs for future years. As I say, particularly in terms of council's own resources. I don't necessarily need it to come back to a future meeting as long as we get the information. And in my original email, I actually suggested, much as what the general manager just said, I think the easiest and clearest way to present it is in the form of a matrix with various funding sources from various projects and how much money is from each source goes to each project.
So having heard what you just said there, do you wish to go ahead with part 2 of your amendment?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
That requires an ordinary, coming back to the next ordinary meeting.
It has been so difficult to get information. Sometimes I've previously mentioned other reports that I've requested information that hasn't been provided. I thought that was the best way to make sure we receive it.
Okay. All right. I will put the amendment. Those in favour? Councillor McKicken and Councillor Tucker. Those against? Remaining councillors. The amendment is lost. I'll now put the original recommendation that the report 0504 be received as the information. All in favour? All councillors unanimous. The motion is passed. Now, that does not prevent the general manager coming up with a method of providing that sort of information, and I think that is probably best done through the council's portal once it becomes fully viable.
So through the chair, just in terms of information, the Technical Services Director is already working on a table as we speak. jotting down the very things that would become available.
All right, item 0505, draft 2022-2023 capital works program. Report item 0505 be received as information. Do I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Hayden. Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, it's a thorough report. In the report, it explains to you capital works projects and where it's coming from, roads to recovery, etc., etc. I'm pleased to see that the Sewell Creek Road's being selected for a bitumen seal. It'll make a lot of the residents out there very happy, and a lot of the travellers from Rockley that use that road frequently. The Ginkin Spring Mount Chatham Valley Road, that's further down on the list of priority road matrix. I'm just wondering whether that should be up towards the top 5 a little bit more, because it's a more frequently utilised road as well, even though it is classified as a rural 3, but it has a lot more frequent traffic than, say, Sewell and Mozart. So I'm just wondering whether that should be a little higher on that list. Rosemount Road, next 7 kilometres. That's going to be awesome when that road gets finalised. Everyone's been talking about how great that has been and how great it is currently. And then the seal on the driveways that Councillor McCarthy had mentioned at our previous meeting, when that all gets fixed up. And I think, it'd be interesting to see in this Midwestern Highway Laney assistance to that project from our council. So it was interesting reading that. The O'Connell Sports and Rec Ground. And I saw in here, did we have that way? Oh no, that's the next forward. So yeah, I'm happy to leave that. Sorry for running.
Right. Councillor McCarthy.
And I'm happy to move the report, but I need clarification on the Sills Creek Road. Is this next 1 to 2 kilometres on this side of the Sills Creek Bridge?
Deputy Service Director.
Yeah, through the mayor, yes, it would be an extension on a continuation on the existing extension of seal, which is on, I think, the over side of the bridge.
Beaconsfield down to the bridge. Okay.
Correct.
I support that. I think we've really got to have a look at this Sills Creek Road once we get to the bridge, because once you go past that, well, even once you leave the Beaconsfield Road, it's not a bus route, and it gets a Guernsey because it is a bus route. The buses don't go down the remaining part of the Sills Creek Road. On page 37, the O'Connell Rec Ground, and I know we're going to report back to the schedule of works, but when are we going to reinstate the bore so that people can use it?
Through the mayor, certainly it's a work obviously in progress with the earthworks, it's the layout, and really not jumping the gun and putting the electrical back in until those levels are done and the excavations and the like. But there is a bit of conceptual there now in terms of where we will put that, and you're right, we'd like to be able to get that up and going as quick as we can, but again, we're moving that equipment from that particular location to the new filling point up on Beaconsfield Road. There's a bit more discussion around that, which will come back through council as a separate report to what those costs look like. So that needs to be also a decision of council and what that looks like. That helps.
So you're moving the bore,
Um,
or is the bore staying
the
there?
bore has to stay where it is.
Yep.
But the infrastructure, let's go with that,
Okay.
needs to be moved. So there's a cost to that, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's all. Yeah, just the Midwestern Highway. Uterus not been able to get a lot of our own works done. Is that feasible to be going off there and like, you know, look at the Noonan's Hill Road we got, and I know that's been done by a contractor, but you know, there's heaps of works we're not doing ourselves, and I think it's a shortage of experience in our staff that, you know, yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Would you like to comment, Matt, please, General Manager, after our discussion?
Yeah, so through the chair, it's one of those things that we always like to see our plant in other local government areas showing everyone how good we do things. That's the by and by. However, it is an opportunity to undertake works that have the ability to subsidise what you replace in your plant, other things that have advantages. Now, that will be a mix of contract and council should that work be undertaken, but it's a project that we through the director believes that it's worthy of at least throwing our hat into the ring, given that one of our core businesses is still to build and undertake construction of roads. So that's why it's there, council.
Okay, Councillor McKechnie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just if I could ask a question on the wording of the recommendation in the wording of the summary. We're in the summary. We're told it's a draft capital works program, which it is. We're just wondering in the recommendation, should the recommendation reference something that says that this will come back to council for approval before any of this work is implemented, because and the priorities set. It's not just, it's just okay, let's give it for information and we just go ahead and do what's on this report. It doesn't actually say that it's got to come back for the council to approve this. This what I'm probably getting it.
Okay, I would thought the draft is the giveaway there.
Yeah, I know it says that in the summary, but it doesn't say in the recommendation. It's probably just a.
I can assure you that it'll come back to council to approve after once it becomes the capital works program.
Yeah, that's it.
Or prior to it becoming a capital
I
works
just
program.
thought it would be good to have it in.
Yeah, through the chair, I understand, but happy for a wording change if you that and it be report, note the draft and report back through the financial or the prior to the 22-23 being endorsed. Is that?
Yeah, I personally would just like to see something in there like that, but it's only one voice. So
Put it up as an amendment.
no, I'm not that pedantic about it. I just think that
All right, any other
I'm
comments?
happy to take the general managers and the mayor's word that it will come in.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor McKechnie. I also wanted to clarify that receiving it as information only meant as information, and that as part of our budget deliberations over the next couple of months, at some point we will be formally adopting the roads construction program.
Sorry.
It'll come back to you. It'll form part of your draft operational plan that then gets put on exhibition, and then prior to it being endorsed, it would then need to come back to council for endorsement as part of that program.
So that draft operational plan would list the projects and list the amount of money for each project.
Through the chair, that forms how we can put our draft plan on exhibition. So what this will inform is the finance reports next month, which will have this information in it, which subject to being endorsed by council, that will go on exhibition. And then once exhibition's been undertaken and you've read the commentary and you've been out to the communities and you've heard what they have had to say about each of the individual things, you'll come back and make a decision on the whole operational plan, which includes that.
And just to extend from that, when we adopted the program for 22-23, do we also give an indication of likely projects for the following few years? And that's part of what I was getting at in trying to understand the funding sources, to see which which sources have how much money available, whether it's ongoing or one-off grants and all those sorts of things.
So through the chair, the way that staff put together the forward plans is based on things such as council's approved matrix it has for its drainage program, its rural roads sealing program, its environmentally affected roads allocation, and those roads that council have endorsed as the priority roads in that space. So there is absolutely a way in which we program our works to put these things together. If councillors are of the opinion that they would like to view and see those matrix and how they've been adopted, and therefore look at whether they are still current, I think that could be a possible future works committee meeting where you get an understanding about how they've been developed. More than happy to include that in a future works committee, but that's how we've done that. So having that information available is certainly something.
Yeah,
That's
so-
how we develop these programs. Let me go with that.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is that that people in the community are able to see tentatively, yet to be adopted in future years, but tentatively, these are the years in which certain projects may be coming up for funding. So 2022, 23, these are the adopted ones. But someone who's interested in a particular project could see, oh yeah, my road looks like being 24, 25, whatever.
So if you look on page 35, you have our priority road matrix, and that identifies that exact process. Now, the fact that we are at Sewells Creek Road for 22, 23, we've done works on Beaconsfield Road, we've undertaken works on Ginkin, we've undertaken works on Carwood, we're undertaking works on Mozart, and we propose to undertake works on Sewells Creek Road as part of the 22-23 year. Now, that relates to the way we look at our priority rural roads that need a level of seal attached to them. Council endorsed that program in 2019.
So for that was going to be my next question about the priority roads. So is Beaconsfield Road now fully sealed all the way through?
No, so through the chair, what council resolved was, because there is such a large number and it relates to the way that we look at reseal, like a new seal, and it's our 1 to 2 kilometres each year. So instead of doing one project to its completion, the council resolved to look at, I'll say, spreading the love across the roads matrix and doing bits and pieces on each of those roads for each financial year where the funding's available.
And again, that's where I think a year by year tentative schedule could be really helpful both to us and to the community.
Yep.
My next question relates to page 35. It may just be a typo, but I'm not sure. Item 3, Abercrombie Road. It says 22-23 repair grant 200,000. 200,000 regional roads block grant, 400,000 grant income. I'm not understanding. Should that say roads to recovery grant 200,000? Item 3.
Yeah, through the mayor, the repair grant,
I think the repair grant is 400,000.
yes, it should, you're right. I did table on page 34 a component of $200,000, and it should have R2R, the roads to recovery behind that, and $200,000 from regional roads block grant, which is council's component of 400,000, because it's a 50-50 grant, which then attracts that additional 400,000 grant.
Yeah, so the 400,000 grant income, that's the repair grant.
Correct.
And the first 200,000 where it says repair grant should say roads to recovery grant.
Yes, well, they should have 22-23 repair grant, which is made up of 200,000, whereas has the hyphen 200, roads to recovery, and then brackets regional roads block grant combined to make 400,000.
Yeah, and the first 200 is roads to recovery.
Correct.
Right, thank you. And just finally, Mr. Mayor, just to talk about maintenance. So we're talking about the final section on page 37. And I was supported an increased allocation for maintenance, and in particular relating to bitumen reseals and gravel resheeting. I'm wondering if we could get some information about our total sealed area on regional roads, on rural or local roads and town streets, and get an idea of how much reseals are being done each year, so that we can see how many years it takes to turn over the whole sealed road network and how close we are to complying with the normal standards that we should be seeing for reseals.
Something through the tech services, if that.
Yeah.
Noted.
Anyone else?
I have a couple of things. The draft capital works program only includes roads. And we have more capital works than roads, and I think that oversight needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed before this goes out to the community. We have a community hub, we have a sewage treatment plant, and and potentially within not too long, we'll have a community sports complex, all of which are capital works. I note the priority road matrix, and I note also Councillor McCarthy's comments previously about Sills Creek Road. I think the basic assumptions we have for that matrix, such as is it a through road, is it a tourist road, is it a logging road, is it a bus route, are valid and remain valid, but I think we need to, it's time to fine tune that particular matrix. It was certainly in place when I arrived on council, and I don't think we actually updated it. We just monitored it for the most of last council. I think there is an opportunity to sit down and review that matrix with some fresh eyes. But I do think that the basic assumptions are still pretty valid. I have nothing further to say. Anyone else have some views? Councillor McCarthy?
Yeah, just I sort of agree with you with the capital works and the other things like the hub and the recreation grant. But the smaller items that seem to slip through the crack too, like the back in the grandstand hasn't occurred yet. Shelters over on the rec ground hasn't occurred yet. And they're in this current budget, and well, we're only 10 weeks away from the end of the year. So these are the things that can be done. They're not done by our staff use. So I think we can enhance this a bit better, this report. And if we vote for different things like the barbecue down at the skate park, it's been going on for 7-8 months. It's can't be that bad, but you know, if we can't get one from a preferred supplier, I understand this one's disabled, but we look somewhere else, because the ones down at Flat Rock haven't even got a gas bottle with them. When I was down there on New Year's night,
You would have been disappointed then.
no, we lit a match. Had to go up Bolton Lane and get a load of wood. Anyway, thank you.
All right, any more? All right, I put the recommendation that this 0505 be received as information. In favour? Unanimous. Motion is passed. Item 0506, the Oberon Waste Depot. The recommendation is that report item 0506 be received as information. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Hayden. Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Hayden.
Yes, it's just a basic report. I can see that it's quite thorough. In our attachment, I just want to draw your attention to column action 15. In the JS regulatory comment, there may just need to be some spelling check there, where I hope the staff don't have any faux out there, but so I'd also like a little bit of information on what's happening with our green waste at the waste facility. Is that being recycled and then turned into compost for our local gardens at all?
Planning Director, through the chair. Also, that's the green waste is shredded and it's used for cover for the tip, mixing with the soil. So as far as I'm aware, it's not used for.
So is there anything we can do to use that, make a section out of the tip, use that for compost so that we can then reuse that and have a bit more of a recycling input to it and utilise on our gardens?
Through the chair, something I think to take on notice, Councillor.
Through the chair, composting isn't exactly as easy as what you think in terms of how to get approval to do such a thing. The rationale behind utilising green waste at the tip was on the basis of an assistance quite substantially in delivering a decent cover material and some regen on our existing facility that we have. Composting together with methane exchange and a whole heap of other great ideas are exactly that for larger facilities that we don't currently have, and the issues relating to composting would potentially put our license under quite a spotlight that we can't probably afford to keep, to be honest with you. I would suspect that the EPA would want to have quite a substantial look at us if we were going down that composting route. Not, as the director said, not an impossible feat, but it's not, I don't think it's as easy as just starting a composting process. That's my own.
Might just note it for the future.
No, I'm happy to note.
Councillor McCarthy, I'm sorry, I assume you're
That's all right.
Councillor McCarthy.
I'm happy with the report. Just a couple of items in there. Weybridge. I looked at some of the data before. This is when Gary was the director, and we were told we were under the threshold and we didn't need a Weybridge out there. The EPA said that because of the activity of our tip, we didn't need a Weybridge. So I'm pretty sure that's correct.
That's true.
We're under the threshold.
Through the chair, we are considered part of the waste levy because one of the size of what we take at our tip. So we weren't able to access funding previously through the EPA to get a Weybridge. We've always had a license.
What's that? Okay. The thing is that, anyway, have we made a comparison between what we get now is cubic to what you anticipate if you've got a Weybridge and you've got to take the weight? Now, if you take one of the trucks that goes out there, it's got a yellow cab on it. It's only bulk. So if you're going to get out there and think that they got 15 tonne on it, might be 3. So is the Weybridge what we got possibly before us? And I shudder to think that we use this J&S services report. Anyway, because I think we might be shooting ourselves in the foot for our income, where if you've got that truck measured, it's 2.4 wide, 6 metres long, 1.2 high, we get the fee for that thing. But he goes out there and the changes and drastically reduces because he's only got light material on. I think we find our income out of the tip greatly reduced. And the other thing is, what's happened with all the pile of the mattresses? Aren't we going to act on that? Well, they can't go there forever.
Through the chair, the current contract with Net Waste is up for renewal. Oberon has not been part of that contract for the last period of time. So I'm, as I mentioned, I'm looking at additional locations to looking at both the shredding of the tyres, rubber tyres that are out there, and also mattresses. Hence why we're keeping them in a pile to do that. So I'm going back to the Net Waste contractor, plus other contractors who may do that sort of work to look at putting a further contract, which is outside of Net Waste, back to council until the Net Waste contract is then renewed.
And what's happened with all the old tree stumps that are right up the back? Should we put through the chipper? We've asked to consider that when we're doing the Campbell's River Road works, that maybe we took them out to the quarry and burnt them, like, you know, it's, we've got to do something with it to tide it up. It's going to be, you had a chance to backload them as virtues. I always considered that if you took those stumps back out and to the 5-way quarry, you could actually legally burn them. It's just timber, but you can't burn them at the tip. I understand that. But yeah, we got to get on top of all this. Thank you.
Councillor Trimble. Sorry, you finished.
No, you're right.
Councillor Trimble.
To the planning director, I noticed a report from JS, and they talked about the volume and the change from one survey to the other. 90% on page 49. It's quite significant, that increase. Do we understand? One, why? And two, did our revenue increase accordingly with such a big increase?
Through the chair, I'll answer the second part with the revenue. It's based on what comes through the waste facility, then the appropriate charge is provided at the time, whatever the current fees and charges the council adopts would be available. I can't answer going back a few years, I'm sorry, but in terms of the additional waste, between the two different volumetric surveys, I think this shows the additional waste that is coming to the waste facility. I'm not sure there's a particular reason behind it.
Possibly my question is because having been a user of the tip, I don't know how it's monitored, but in my experience, there is a cache, if you wish, receipt, used to be, not sure if that continues. And anecdotally, that Oberon is a great place to get rid of your waste because it's a lot cheaper than other surrounding LGAs. Right. And I've heard that from people who do use it in that way. And I just wonder how we would really monitor that or put something in place for a few months just to understand exactly what's going on there.
Going through the chair, it's my understanding that we provide a receipt for each transaction, whether it's cash or EFTPOS. Take that on,
you know,
take that on notice. And,
not in recent, I know there's some people there.
Sure.
I have experience.
In terms of the fees, for example, if you look at page 50, the JS regulatory comparison there between Oberon and Bathurst and Lithgow. I'll exclude Katoomba because Katoomba has the EPA waste environment levy that the general manager mentioned, but say, for example, Lithgow $143 per tonne for mixed waste. We're $45 per cubic metre, but if you convert that, I think it's 1.02. We're approximately $46 per tonne. So we are significantly under, but the other side of that is we do ensure that we do ask for a rates notice, or if we know waste is coming from a person that we're not aware of, we do ask for rates notice.
I think it's just a bit loose. Personally, that the system that we use is perhaps suitable for a time, but I don't think it's actually suitable for now. And I know you have issues with staffing, but the hours are also restricted as well. And then that sort of plays into why would you have a weight, which I think Councillor McCarthy's already brought that up, because if you're looking for volume weights, we're not going to give you that information.
through the chair, I think that the whole waste space is moving into a more volume, a more evidence-based scenario around what's going in there. Traditionally, we haven't seen the volumes that have gone in there, and that's increasing for a number of reasons. And the other thing that we don't get the opportunity to, in fact, measure is what goes in. So we have recycling at the tip, but we don't have weighing of green waste. We don't have weighing of those things that traditionally would give us the opportunity to, in fact, get some data capture on these things that we don't have. So the other benefit of a weighbridge is it's a one in, one out type scenario. So it gives you that capture, it gives you that protection, and it gives you that security around how things are dealt with in that scenario. But look, it's clear to see we're getting more, and we're getting to a point where we're at the top end of our license in terms of what's we're allowed to take each year.
Through the chair again, my other point would be, having used it, the signage is very poor, and you get pointed to go up near the loader. I have no idea what the loader is, or you just pointed off in some direction of the dirt road, and I think it probably would tidy up the actual area if it was very well signposted. This is where you put this, this is where you put this, and I think you would probably, from experience with swing bricking, understand how well signposted that is, and everyone knows they make their way around and drop off various bits and pieces.
That's absolutely acknowledged.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Timber. I would just like to make one observation, and that is that 90,000 cubic metres over that period, 3 years, is pretty much a fourfold increase over the previous reported period, and that's ground truth. That's not making up stuff about what's in the back of one truck versus another. That's the ground truth, and that needs to be interrogated in terms of how that can, where that is happening, and we need to be making sure that our charges, particularly for bulk materials, reflect that, because you're not going to get 90,000 cubic metres versus nearly a fourfold increase out of the back of trailers. That's coming out of big trucks, and we need to start charging for that. Is there anyone else? Councillor McKechnie?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's just that's over a 37-month period.
Yep.
The tonnes per month is a more indicative. It's actually doubled, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty much doubled. So,
But that's tonnes versus volume.
yeah, the volume is doubled, and the tonnage is doubled. So that, as the director said, we're just getting twice as much in as we were. So whether we're getting the money for it or not.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
We need to understand that.
Yeah.
Councillor McCarthy.
I've already had a go, so I ask for your
That's all right.
indulgence.
I often let you have 2 or 3.
No, I only want another go. We got to be mindful of that. We have people that live around the tip.
Yep.
And I haven't got a competing interest. But what happens is out the tip there, we get failed paper products that go there. And we need our operator to know that when that's coming in, and they cover it straight away, because it ends up blown away everywhere. It's no good that operator sitting down that umpy, and commercial carrier comes in and dumps that. We've got to be on top. So, and I also like to keep pushing along with the, so we do get the power on there, not only the power for the site, but there's other activities once we get the power there that can take place. Thank you.
Okay. You want to write a reply? Councillor Hayden? All right. Well, I'll put the motion that the report item 0506 is received as information. All in favour? Unanimous. The motion is passed. Now, I'm going to call a break in a moment, but we have general business, which is currently after we go into confidential. Now, if general business is likely to have a bit of confidential information needs to be talked about, it needs to stay where it is. If not, I'll do it beforehand. So are you going to have, is any of the general business that anyone may have likely to be confidential in nature?
Not for more.
All right, well, what I'll do is move with a mover and a seconder, moving general business back to where we are now. And I'll take a break for 10 minutes so we can have a think at this for 2 hours. So can I have a mover and a seconder to move general business to immediately after item 0506, which is the one we've just dealt with. Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Graham, all in favour? Okay. All right. At this stage, we'll take a break for 10 minutes, then do general business, then go on confidential after that. So again, stop recording if you would, Mr. Swinnell. And the Works Committee resumes at 3:14 p.m. with general business. Councillors, any general business? Councillor Graham?
Yeah, this is with Councillor McCarthy, I think.
Yeah.
The issue of the driveway to 39 Oberon Street, which was in the minutes from the last Works Committee, but it didn't sort of have any resolution that I could see. It was just, it was there.
Right, so through the mayor, the owners were written to, obviously, and outlined what they had raised as a concern for them feeling obligated, or council's obligation to construct the driveway. Certainly not being the case. They also then outlining Transport for New South Wales had no objection, of course, for them to do that with the council. It's council's jurisdiction. So I believe they went down the path then of obtaining quotations and they were doing a design to suit that. Of course, there's utility in the footpath and a number of modifications that need to be done to the existing rock retaining wall, even from council's point of view, which would be then determined through a design process. They would have to submit as part of the application to put the driveway there. So nothing's moved forward other than I believe they did obtain quotes.
Somebody's come to look at it, but they haven't actually given them the quote at the moment, but it's very close.
Yeah, so I've stepped away, obviously, providing a quotation, given how busy we've been from resourcing and all projects. So, yeah, again, I can't really speak to that any further than that letter of correspondence going to them, saying that, yes, we don't have an objection, neither does transport, but it would be at their full cost to do that, should they pursue it.
So councillor, page 11 of the business paper. Probably didn't come under 39 Oberon Street, but under driveway access.
The lady indicated to me, sorry, button in here, that she hasn't got a letter from council saying that they can go ahead and procure other people that do the work. That's what they're waiting for.
Well, I'm happy to reissue it.
Would you mind?
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
Okay.
That's good.
Are they allowed to use those gutters, gutter bridges that are further up the street?
Bridge gutters are really not something that is desirable anymore. No.
I realise that, but it might fit the bill to get over the.
Well, it really just depends on, I suppose, how they determine the gradient and as opposed to the services and the like. But there's a number of, there's obviously telecommunications. I think there's water there from memory, two at least that I know of. So that's really the determining factor in terms of their gradient to the RL of the floor of the shed.
Just a bridge gutter soon as it's been used up the street might get the project over the line, that's all.
Look, I won't rule it out. I mean, certainly something they need to put back to council for consideration. So let's go with that.
Thank you.
Another one. This is also a driveway,
Yep.
and you're talking about the bridge gutters. The house, Dart Street next to Mitre 10, the new footpath is along there. Now they can't get in and out of the driveway properly. So with that,
Which number is that?
I
Sorry,
don't know its
council.
number, but it's on the next to Mitre 10.
On the western
Yeah, there's only
side.
one house like that way.
So it's a pre-existing bridge gutter.
Well, there wasn't anything but the new footpath went along apparently, and now they can't get in and out of the driveway properly.
Okay, I have looked at a particular house there and there was no particular issue. We did put some more gravel in a driveway and resolve that, but might be a different matter. I just need more information.
Was it next door to Mitre 10?
I thought it was, and one very close
And
anyway.
we're still having trouble, I think, getting in and out. Just with the footpath is higher, and so it scrapes.
Right. We can revisit it if you want to provide any more detail.
Yeah, I can give you the number.
Okay.
I just don't know it at the moment.
Yeah.
Any other driveway?
That's all.
Councillor Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one question, page 10 of the business paper, going back to the minutes of the last meeting, Cruz Road. I know there's been stuff going on Cruz Road for decades. Whether this is the same thing as way back then, I'm not sure. I'm just wondering if we can get an update on it. It says Julian will engage with Mr. and Mrs. Byron, whether there's been any progress or whether it's been resolved or what the current situation is.
General Manager?
Through the chair, we've gone back to those parties about the issue, and we're of the opinion that the matter can be resolved quite easily. It's just a matter of which way the parties want to go, and it's now in their hands to see which way they want to go. Relating to a right of carriage route.
It was something like that. I never really got my head around
Yeah.
what was going on out there. It was very complex.
It's been made a lot less complex by some development that's occurred out there, but the right of carriageway is the thing that we're still working on with that.
Councillor McCarthy?
That's not quite right. The right of carriageway is their own problem. The Crown Road is our problem, because it doesn't link itself to the other Crown Road. And if you don't have a link, you won't get past the fishermen to close the other road that goes through their property.
The matter's been substantially reduced by some of the actions that they've taken.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Yeah, I got a few, sorry if you've been indulgence with these things. I'd like to see the council install the conduits in that last section that we got the price from Anaconda Group down here on the Oberon Road. That I think there's two sites that you've got to put conduits across the road. Whether the plan goes ahead to do the undergrounding or not is irrelevant in respect that the RMS just turn up and do this hot mixing. And that's the last section between Earl Street and back up towards Oberon Street. And I don't want to see us do an underbore. I'd rather just see us dig the road pavement up and put these conduits. We have the design, how many conduits and all that's got to go in. That's one. The WC up the reef, it needs steam cleaning. It's full of bird shit. It was. It's not a job that our person that goes to the cleans it can actually do. All the walls have got bird feces and all that all over it. It just needs steam cleaning out, or maybe it needs sheeting with just flat tin or something. But anyway, it needs tidying up. Another one is I'd like to see council consider, soon we're upgrading the Mozart Road, but where the Fish River and the other long arm come in, that we have a look at the culverts and that and have them in place and ready for any more funding that as the moment you go down like that to go across some of these things, we might straighten that road up.
That's outside our scope currently.
Yes, I know it is, but if we can look around things. Where are we up to with the Mack truck that had the incident on the Sills Creek Road? Is it back in service yet?
Very soon. It's up in Dubbo at Worlands. They're having it out by the end of this month. That's what the last update was. So yeah, it should be put back in service very soon.
Okay, thank you. Oh, now, the Abercrombie Road now, I don't know whether the general manager's got this on hand. We need to make application for that road reserve out there if we're going to do development out there. So does the manager need a direction from this council to do it? Or is he going to take it on this matter? The road reserve on the corner of Abercrombie Road and Campbell's.
Oh,
River
Black
Road.
Springs, you're talking about, yeah.
Through the chair, we already had that delegation to proceed. The only reason that it stalled was because no party come forward with the requirements that council asked for.
So we've made application or we haven't made
We
application?
originally made application, but we didn't forward it to any further, to any conclusive matter because no one took up the offer back in 2020.
Okay, but what I couldn't understand that we're calling for expressions of interest, yet we haven't got the facility that can be built on. If you get, we don't own the land to have what we're calling expressions of interest for.
Through the chair, yeah, yes, we do. It's a public road. We dealt with that back in 2020. It's just closing it formally and undertaking the transfer that was stalled because no one was
Okay.
provided interest. If council want to proceed with the closure, we'll attempt to do that. And that should progress the matter.
Closure and purchase, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm happy to support that. The only thing that comes in the back of my mind is, soon when an open council, there was a landholder that's been very supportive of us straightening roads out at Edith. And I recollect that we got a report back through Chris that the RMS had a new policy that they don't resell the road reserves. You know the one I mean, Chris?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it was a lady from the RMS that give us that report, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So once they acquire land, they don't want to actually sell back.
So this wasn't the acquired land, this was the straightening part that they had an interest that they wished to procure. So they've been supportive of us and letting us straighten the road up. And then they thought, well, we'll get the bit of the ground back. And the RMS informed us they now have this policy now. Is that going to affect the ground out of Black Springs?
Through the chair, that was done under two different purposes. This one, I
Okay,
don't see that to be the case. We'll progress the matter and go from there.
all right, thank you. That'll do for me.
I do actually have some. That was fine.
Okay, councillor Hayden.
Okay, now I have a statement and a question. People are attracted to Oberon due to its roads. It doesn't mean its roads straightened out left, right and centre. They like the winding, curving bends of the country roads to ride their bikes and to travel. And we also have to take into consideration that we are actually a sacred meeting place for Indigenous cultures. In the border of Edith, out around the Abercrombie, and at the edge of the Blue Mountains on our Great Divide, we need to take this cultural heritage into consideration when we're doing any kind of works, be it roadworks, fences, trees, any kind of work, that we get the right Indigenous and cultural reports done before we have that work done. Are we doing that currently?
Through the mayor, certainly take due diligence in terms of environmental constraints. So if we know that there's matters that need to be delved into deeper, then certainly we'll engage those particular or consultants that would do that type of work for us. But within a road reserve, certainly we don't really generally, unless we're doing a wholesale road, which probably maybe enact possibility to do such a study, then we work within the current road reserve requirements. Again, with environmental due diligence. So,
Can we just make that noted to council that we make sure that we look at that from now on, because a lot has been forgotten. We go back to 2008, 2012, there's been a lot of destruction that has occurred, and it's the onus is on us to protect heritage. So.
Councillor.
Can I just make a comment on that? We do environmental impact statements on the work, which is required of it. But when we do these impact statements and all that, they have to be factual. And the other day in council, I was told that there was yellow box trees in Oberon. My knowledge of the area, yellow box cuts out at Midlands Hill. Yellow box, where Williams used to live. Middle Creek Estates, we had some people come up from Goulburn. Councillor McMahon at the time went around with them and they said that the chips that are significant where the quarry was, Councillor McMahon said, "I supered this place. That chip is all over this property." With that, they packed up and went back to Goulburn. They come here a day late, and that significant chip was insignificant. And there recently, when there was a smash down the I forget what's on hill where you go down to Penrith. Lapston Hill, typical example when the railway. Aboriginal significant, those two things in that cave. And then the bloke from Victoria rang up and he said, "I sprayed that wall when I was 18 with my brother." It was classed as significance, and there was a load of hogwash because that bloke was able to and authenticate that he actually sprayed that with his brother.
Did he authenticate it though, or are you just talking with colonial,
We have to,
colonial old school Oberon
Councillors,
hogwash?
let's just keep this, let Councillor McCarthy finish. I think
all
you're stepping over the mark. I'll stop.
I'm dealing with is that our heritage is significant, but we have to do with facts. Thank you.
Councillor Trembath. Councillor McKechnie.
Nothing from me, general business.
And nothing from me. All right, thank you, councillors. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2005, in the opinion of the General Manager, the following business is of a kind as referred to in section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in part of the meeting closed to the media and public. I now ask for a councillor to move and second the resolution to move into closed session. Councillor McCarthy, Councillor Trembath. All in favour? Unanimous? Request that Mrs. Winnell turn off recording at 6 p.m. The following resolution was made while the meeting was closed to the public. There were no members of the public present. In items 0601, council road making, road maintenance and road management improvement plan update. The resolution was that the report item 0601 be received as information. The next Works Committee meeting of Oberon Council will be held on Tuesday, the 7th of June 2022, commencing at 5:30 in the Oberon Council Chambers, 137 to 139 Oberon Street, Oberon. I now declare the meeting closed at 3:51 p.m. I wish everyone a good afternoon.
June or July?
June.
I thought they were every 3 months.
They are.
We finished? Are we finished?
Well,